Jordan Raanan covers the Giants, and, of course, reported yesterday that Eli Manning tomorrow will announce his retirement from the NFL. And I'm wondering, what was behind that? Just, I don't want to play anymore. There's not a job for me.
He's going to manage the Mets.
Jordan, welcome back, man. How you been?
What's going on, guys? All good.
Everything's good, man. And this is an interesting story. I mean, not shocking, but did Eli just essentially say, I don't want to play anymore? There's just not a good situation for me. What's the genesis of this decision by him?
Yeah, I don't think it's that he didn't want to play anymore. Everyone I talk to seems to think like he feels good. He thinks he could play. But, look, he sees the situation, right? He's 39 years old. There's not a spot out for him there. Teams yearning to give him an opportunity. Here, come in, be our starter. Here's a good team. Let's go try and win a Super Bowl. Like, that's going to be a tough spot to fall into at this point of his career. He understands that. He has a family. He has 4 kids. They're not moving. There's a lot of moving pieces here. And I think he just came to the realization the best thing for me right now at this point in my career is to say, hey, it was 16 years. It was a great run. 2 Super Bowl wins, 2 Super Bowl MVPs. Look, there's only been, 4 other players that have ever done that. It's like Tom Brady, Bart Starr, Joe Montana, and Roger Staubach. So you see the category that he's in, and you realize he doesn't need to go chase a championship. What does he need to prove? So this was the time. His contract was up. Daniel Jones was taking over in New York. This was the time to just step aside and say, it was a good run.
There it is.
What's next in my life,
Your NFL quarterback Mount Rushmore. You just named the 4 right there. You got Starr, and you got Brady, and you got Montana, and Eli Manning. That's what everybody would say.
Yeah. You know what? And look, Eli really has 2 careers, right?
Yeah.
He has 04 to 11, 12, 2011, 2012. And I got there in 2013, and there's 2013 to 2019, which really wasn't that good. But you have to look and think and look back and remember how good that 2004 to 2012 was. 2 Super Bowls in 4 years. He was a top quarterback. Remember the narrative, the storyline was he won 1, and everyone's like, I was lucky. They had the helmet catch. Eli's not elite. And then what did he do? He went out there and killed it in 2011. They put together a ridiculous run in the playoffs, went on the road, a wild card team in every game, and he did it again. So you got to give a lot of credit to what he accomplished in his career. Those 2 runs being obviously the pinnacle.
All right, so knowing, Jordan, that you said that he really does feel good and would probably like to play, just doesn't see the situation, how realistic, how feasible is it that if training camp comes around or preseason and a couple of teams, maybe even just one team, loses a quarterback and they just don't have a good backup, that, I mean, like take the Cowboys, for example. Prescott gets hurt and they got Cooper Rush as their backup, right? He's not ready to be a starter. How quickly does Eli get a call and accept the offer if that were to happen?
It's an interesting scenario. I mean, you can never close the door on these things. I think he seems pretty comfortable with the decision now, but obviously, it'll change. It could change. I shouldn't say it will change. It could change depending on what happens, when everyone gets back to playing football. And Eli Manning's sitting at home, and what is he doing to keep busy? And does he get that itch? And how good is that opportunity that you're talking about if it does, show up and become available? I think it would be intriguing to him. But again, I think it would have to be the exact perfect situation, and I'm not sure that situation exists. It hasn't popped up in the last few years, right? No one's really made a run at Eli. Probably could have been had if there was a team out there. I know he had a no-trade clause, but we never even heard about anyone going after him. And think about it. A team that needed a quarterback the whole time was a lot of the time, at least, was the Jacksonville Jaguars. They had Tom Coughlin there. And as far as
his
we know,
wasn't his price tag though a real problem at that? As far as I know, they paid Nick Foles well, but even when Nick got hurt, they went to Gardner obviously. But I think it would have been hard for this past year for somebody to bring him in with his price tag. No.
It wasn't as bad as people think because some of it was a $5 million bonus that was already paid at the beginning of the year. Some of it was money from the signing bonus he signed originally. So the contract for this year, if another team took it on, was I think it was $11 million total. So when you're talking about mid-season, you're only talking about $5.5 million, not
That's a good point.
$5.5 million or something like that. So that wasn't as prohibitive as people thought. I think what's prohibitive is that he's 39 years old. And he really hasn't. He was 38 at the time, but he hasn't played. He didn't play particularly well. This was, like I said before, there's sort of two parts of Eli's career, right? He was a great player, one career. That just wasn't the last few years.
Yeah, and how much of an effect do you think that has, or none really? I mean, there's always talk about him. Is he a Hall of Famer? Is he not a Hall of Famer? The detractors go to his record and that the team wasn't perpetually a playoff team and he never was really an MVP type candidate. And then, of course, the other side would say he played every game. He won the Super Bowl twice. He was the MVP of the Super Bowl. I mean, it's a one of those discussions. It seems that he's going to get in, but what do you make of it? And how is it perceived in that market?
Yeah, I think everyone thinks it's a debate. You hear about it a lot. I just wrote something about it. It's not going to go away. It's 5 years because he is one of the most interesting careers of all time, right? I like to say this example about Eli Manning. His career, he's basically Carson Palmer with two ridiculous playoff runs. But you can't just discount those two ridiculous playoff runs, right? I mean, those are big, big things. That is, those are huge. That's at the top of his resume.
Right.
You can't just discount it. But those two, the way I look at it, I don't vote. I'm not a voter for the Hall of Fame. I'm not on the panel. But if I did, one of my criteria always would be, was he the best player at his position, and what did he do it for an extended period of time? Okay? Now, when you look at Eli Manning, he has never been named an All-Pro, right? He has, 4 Pro Bowls in 16 seasons. He was never been in the MVP running for real. So was he the best player at his position? No. The answer is probably no. But in the regular season. But you can look at it and say, well, you know what? He was the best player at his position for 2 playoff runs in the playoffs, and that's probably when it's most important. So I think you can fit him into that category. And in the end, he's going to make it. I don't see a scenario where Eli Manning doesn't make it, the Hall of Fame. I'll be honest with you.
Does he make it because the Hall of Fame voting panel tends to go by the old school rules, right? Like look what happened to Terrell Owens. Most younger people will be like, he should have belonged on the Hall of Fame first ballot, but the old guard and the sanctity of the game. The old guard, I hate to use the word old guard too because I'm not young, but they will say 2 Super Bowls. Anybody who's won 2 Super Bowls is in, I think, except for maybe Plunkett. But, any guy with Eli's type of career that's won 2 Super Bowl MVPs is going to be in, and that's, for a lot of guys, that's going to just be it. They don't care about the rest. That's going to be it.
But you know what? But I almost understand that in a way.
Yeah, no, I get it.
That big. It is that big. It is that important. You do that twice. It pretty much earns you a walk into the Hall of Fame in the end, and that is. But on top of that, it's also that, he's leaving the game. He's top 7 in completions, touchdown passes. So it's not like he didn't accomplish anything else, right? Mm-hmm. He's top 10 in a lot of major categories, and I know, and I'm the first to say this, passing stats these days aren't Eli Manning as a passer is not comparable to Joe Montana because they play a different game. The ball is just thrown so much more. Every quarterback nowadays throws the ball more, but still, he's top 10. So, and the durability thing is also something that's going to work in his favor. It's an accomplishment in the NFL.
Sure.
Yeah.
To never miss a game in his entire career due to injury.
Yeah.
Never. And you guys watch. You have Carson Wentz over there in Philadelphia. Eli Manning has never, in 16 seasons, missed a game because of injury.
No matter how hard the Eagles beat him up.
That helps Giants a lot. That helps. You know how much it helps your team win.
Yeah.
When that's the case.
Very interesting. An interesting career. And by the way, a tremendous human being, a great career, by the way. Nobody should be looking at his career and saying, this guy was a stiff, or, he had some moments. The one thing about the moments that, I don't say bother me, but I find it interesting is the smaller sample size of games are the more important ones. He had 236 games, of which really were not Hall of Fame level, but it's this small sample size of games in a 2-season window that are now the most important. And it's like you get crucified by saying, well, for 15 years, he really wasn't a Hall of Famer. Oh, but there was 2 that he was. And the 2 to me should not outweigh the other 15.
So you ultimately wouldn't put him in the Hall of Fame?
No. The teams in New York they had their Super Bowls. I don't take that away from them, but they were not a good team more times than they were while he was their quarterback. And the other guys that are there that we compare him to, those teams were constantly in the playoffs. I mean, not 15 out of 15, but they were constantly good football teams. If you have a Hall of Fame quarterback, you shouldn't be out of the playoffs more than you're in.
I agree with that to a degree, but in defense of Eli, his teams the last few years have been pretty bad. This backstretch.
Well, how much are they pretty bad? Because he was pretty bad.
Now, some of the blame has to fall on his shoulders.
Yeah.
He's a high-paid, big quarterback, and you want him to lift you and be terrible. And they have been terrible the last 3 years. And really, they made the playoff once in the last 8 since 2013, since 2012. I mean. So, yeah, I get it, but he like Ben Roethlisberger, right? Made the playoffs a ton, especially early in his career. He was asked to be a game manager. They had the number 1 defense in the league, 3 of his first 5 years or whatever. Eli Manning didn't have that, especially during this part of his career. So it's hard to win when the team around you has been what it is. I think if some of these seasons that he had gone 7-9, I think that would have been an accomplishment. It still wouldn't have won anything. Still would have missed the playoffs. But, even if he played really well, they still weren't going to make the playoffs with the defense they threw around the field some of the seasons, or the offensive line the offensive line that they threw out there in 2013, 14 was really, really bad.
I think an interesting dynamic, which you brought up a couple minutes ago, is what was his best season and where did he rank in that season? Because there's just so many arguments, I think, for Eli to make the Hall of Fame, and I think there's so many for him not to make the Hall of Fame. So if you can recall his best season individually, and where do you think he ranked that year?
I think it was probably 11, around the 10-11 season. 2008, he was really good.
Yeah, 12-4.
So their season got derailed by Plaxico shooting himself in the leg.
That was a big thing, Plaxico, going out.
They were the Tom Coughlin always says that he thinks that was the best team they've ever had in 2008. And that they were going big, they were going places, they were going to win the Super Bowl. And he was playing really well at that. But from that Super Bowl run in 2007 until 2011, even 12, he actually played pretty well in 12. I know they didn't make the playoffs, but he played pretty well in 2012. That stretch from 7 to 12, he were his best years by far, in my opinion. That's when he was at the top of his game. Do you remember the conversation was, is Eli elite? Because he had that one Super Bowl, and everyone's like, he's still not elite. He's still not elite. And then in 10 and 11, he played lights out, and everybody had to concede no matter what you thought of Eli. Be like, all right, guess he's elite now. He just did it again. They got it hot late in the season. He did it again, put it together. And if you remember, 2011, they win the Super Bowl. They had the 32nd ranked run offense that year.
Right.
32nd.
Real quick, because Eli Jordan said, he didn't love the whole idea of being a backup and coaching and everything. What do you, if it's not getting back into football because of an injury, do you see him on TV? Do you see him just disappearing? What's next for Eli?
Yeah, I can't see Eli sitting at home and doing nothing, because he said he didn't like being a backup because he was bored.
Right.
it didn't. He liked to compete. He liked to do stuff. I don't think coaching is for him. He's talked about this before, aside from like his, being assistant on his daughter's third grade basketball team, which he does now. I don't think he's ultimately going to be like into coaching. These guys he made over $250 million. That's more than any player in the history of football. Because he hit the rookie pay scale before it changed, and then he got 2 mega deals, and so it really worked in his favor.
Only surpassed by Sam Bradford.
The rookie deal. Nobody in the history of football has surpassed 250 yet.
No,
252, I think it is. Sam Bradford didn't get that lucky. You got lucky, not that lucky.
Yeah.
So, guys who make that much money, they're not really interested usually in getting into coaching and getting into the grind and never being home and sleeping in the office. I don't know. I could see Eli getting into some sort of entertainment business, being a businessman. I believe his brother Cooper does a whole bunch of stuff. I think he's a venture capitalist, if I remember correctly, something along those lines. So I could see Eli doing stuff like that in his career, maybe doing some stuff with Peyton. Peyton does the Peyton's Places on ESPN Plus. He did an episode with Eli. When the two of them together, it's always entertaining. So I could see them doing some projects together, stuff like that, kind of like what Peyton's done so far in his post-playing days.
He's the ESPN NFL Nation Giants reporter, Jordan Raanan. He's got the iconic moments from Eli's career posted now at ESPN.com, and he was kind enough to join us on the Boardwalk Honda Hotline. Well done, Jordan. Thanks, pal.
You got it, guys. Anytime. You have a good day, all right?